Hello, void dwellers everywhere. There's this talking point made by many people these days that argues that just because our brain interprets reality, that must mean reality is an illusion. And even channels that I like very much and respect immensely fall for that logical fallacy. I already made a video about Kyle Hill's video that claimed reality is an illusion. And now kurzgesagt made a video with kind of the same fallacy. Now, don't get me wrong, in their usual style, the video is absolutely brilliant, and they do touch on some of what I'm about to say in this video. So this is not really a rebuttal, more of a couple of notes that I wanted to make about their video. And the first one is a note about this.
3 very different inputs, all processed in your brain at different times. You don't experience them separately, but as one smooth, simultaneous and connected moment. Your brain takes a moment to process and then invents a reality, a present moment that's not real.
No, sorry, guys. I have to strongly disagree. Just because the brain interprets reality doesn't mean reality is invented by the brain. Let's look at this from another angle. Think about heat. In truth, you might say that heat doesn't exist objectively in the outside world. The perception of heat is really subjective. It depends on the tolerance of the creature perceiving it. What is hot for us is nothing for a camel. What is nothing for us is life-threatening for a polar bear. So what is heat? Well, heat is actually the result of molecules getting excited and colliding with the less excited molecules in your hand, or whatever it is of you that touches the hot thing. And the energy they transfer to your lazy molecules is interpreted by the brain as heat. The more energy is transferred, the more the cell is in danger of being damaged, the hotter it feels to you. A burn is the result of those extremely excited particles smashing into your cells with more energy than they can stand. Basically, a burn is a molecule-sized wrecking ball going at insane speeds from your cell's point of view and destroying their molecular structure. And that damage is interpreted by your brain as the pain of being burned. So, is heat a real thing in the outside world? Well, yes. And no. Heat is the way your brain interprets a real thing that is happening in the outside world, in objective reality. Your brain doesn't cause heat. Your brain creates the sensation of heat as a response to an outside stimuli. And that's the first mistake I hear people make with this kind of logic. They act as if what's important is that the interpretation doesn't exist on its own in objective reality. But that's not what is important. What's important is the thing the interpretation is communicating to us. And that thing is very much in the outside world. Saying that the brain invents reality just because it interprets stimuli in sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch is like saying that we invent reality by using language, which was a belief in the ancient world when they thought magic was real, and yes, some people still believe that to this day. But language does not create reality. That's one of those cliches that sounds smart when you're 14, but turns out to be extremely stupid when you grow up. Language does not create reality. Language is used to communicate an idea. The idea might be a description of something in the world, or it can be a description of something completely imaginary. Maybe it is used to invoke an emotional response, or to make people follow a certain agenda. But all of those things are done through the same medium, communication of an idea. That's all language is about, communication. And that's what the brain's interpretation of reality is about. It's about making us aware of our surroundings by giving us ways to understand the stimuli we receive from the outside world. It's not the same as inventing reality. Another fallacy you can find people make many times is the separation of consciousness, which people think is the self, from the rest of the brain. And while kurzgesagt actually in their video explain the role of consciousness very accurately in the end, they do still use this dichotomy of addressing the conscious mind as the you part and the other systems of the brain as a separated thing.
If you acted now and started swinging your arm, you'd miss by a mile. Things are just too fast. So before the ball even touches your opponent's bat, your brain starts predicting where it will likely be in space after they hit. For a short moment, multiple ghost versions of you exist, all equally real inside your brain. And then, as your opponent is about to lay into the swing, your brain decides on a single future that it thinks is most likely. All but one of the ghosts are deleted. You are totally oblivious to this. By the time you consciously see the ball coming at you and decide to hit it in a particular way, your body has already hit it back. In reality, your brain already made all the decisions.
Notice how they phrase it. Your brain makes the predictions, makes the decisions, not you, because consciousness wasn't involved. And again, they do take that point back a bit later in the video and make the case that you are not just tagging along for the ride while your brain makes all the decisions. But I feel they still maintain the attitude that the self is mostly the conscious mind. But you are not your consciousness. Consciousness is just a tool for your brain. We know the brain can make many decisions without the conscious mind's involvement. In fact, most of our day-to-day decisions are done without our awareness and only communicated to us in retrospective. For a simple reason. Consciousness is slow, and therefore for quick thinking moments, it's simply not up for the task. For example, if you walk around in high grass and you see something moving on the ground next to you, you will jump. You will jump back. The way you would experience it from your perspective is that you look down, you notice something is there, you thought, a snake, and you jumped back to avoid it. But that is a complete illusion. What really happened is that your brain noticed the thing moving and gave the command to your legs before you were even aware of what you saw on the ground. And then your brain told you a fairy tale about how things went down. But here's the thing. That doesn't mean you didn't make the choice. You are not your consciousness. What we refer to as the self is a collection of abilities, skills, memories, desires, strengths, weaknesses, phobias, flaws, everything else that makes the phenomenon of you. You are not your conscious mind. You are your entire mind. You made the decision. Your consciousness was simply not involved. And guess what? Other parts of your brain were not involved either. Your ability to play the piano was also not involved. Consciousness is not this super admin that controls everything. The brain doesn't really have something like that, but rather it is built of microservices that work independently of each other. Here's another way to demonstrate that. There's a condition with a name that I cannot pronounce properly, so I'm going to use AI to say it for me. The condition is called
hemianopic anosognosia.
And this condition causes the part that is responsible for processing the input from the eye to be damaged. And here's the thing. If people's sight diminishes because of a problem with the eye, they are aware of it. But when it's caused by
hemianopic anosognosia,
they aren't aware of it. Because the part of the brain that is supposed to raise the flag and let consciousness know that something is wrong is the part that is damaged. Your consciousness is not just not you. It's an empty vessel. It knows nothing more or less than the data it receives from the other systems of the brain. It gives us the sensation that we are a unified being, but you know what? That is the illusion. That is the invention by the brain that really has nothing to do with reality. The outside world is real. The interpretations of the brain are interpretation of stimuli from the outside world that are absolutely real. You are not. You are the result of a combination of autonomous systems working together to enhance the chances for this creature to survive long enough to have and raise young. And one of those systems is responsible for creating the illusion of a you, to facilitate such things as desire, fear, and long-term calculation and decision-making. But it's not real. You are not real. Well, not the way you experience yourself. The phenomenon of the you that you are right now is a physical fact in objective reality. But your perception of yourself as a unified creature who is in conscious control and consciously making decisions, that is an absolute illusion. But it's an illusion that benefits us, and we depend on that, and we can't really shake it, because it's a biological edict derived from the way our brains are structured. So you might as well go with it. Just maybe remember that you are not always aware of the reasons behind your own decisions. But that doesn't mean you weren't the one making the decisions. Reality is real. Consciousness is not. But you are not your consciousness.